And so with that, I am very excited for our next talk. It's a fireside chat about the journey of data, transforming the enterprise with data-centric workflows. Please help me welcome back to the stage CEO and co-founder of Snorkel AI, Alex Ratner. And please join me in welcoming Head of Enterprise Data Science at Capital One, Nurtekin Savas. And for our audience, we will be doing Q&A, so please add your questions in the Q&A tab. Thank you so much for joining us. Over to you, Alex.
Awesome. Thank you, Arti. Hello again. And Nurtekin, thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to get to talk with you and hopefully at the end with some Q&A with the rest of the folks here.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Appreciate you inviting me.
Awesome. Well, again, we're joined here by Nurtekin, who is Head of Enterprise Data Science at Capital One, and I'm really excited to chat with you, Nurtekin, about some of what you've seen at Capital One and in your many different experiences in the world of data science in high impact enterprise applications. So let me start off with the obvious question. What do you think of as what does data-centric AI mean in the context of your work at Capital One today?
Sure, Alex. I'll say in simple words, data-centric AI at Capital One means making data better to enable intelligent applications for our customers and associates. It's as simple as that, but there's a lot behind the scenes there. Data that goes into models can be improved in two ways. Number one, through the model development lifecycle. We talk a lot about that. And number two, through the data lifecycle itself. We're familiar with the first one, where data-centric AI activities improve the AI or model development lifecycle. And we talk about things like synthetic data generation, sampling techniques, feature engineering, model output monitoring, error analysis, and the likes. But data-centric AI should also include improving data in the data lifecycle itself. And the data lifecycle includes a number of different phases. It starts with, after data creation, the data registration phase. And then you need to figure out storage, how to structure and organize your data within that storage. You want to tokenize and encrypt your data. Maintenance and monitoring of data is an important step in the data lifecycle, governance of data. Finally, the data lifecycle comes to an end with deletion or archival of data. And in all these phases, we can improve on data so that along the way, data is searchable, it's discoverable, it's high quality, monitored for drift, and alerts are created for data producers or consumers. And data is, of course, secure. And I'll talk about a couple of best practices when it comes to data-centric AI in the data lifecycle. First of all, we should always create feedback and engagement mechanisms for the end users of the models or the AI systems that we're creating so that we can get the right feedback loops and signals back into our models. We should standardize the tools, processes, and platforms that we use to process data or build models so that we can move our data and models through the lifecycle easily. We should invest in real-time structured data that is standardized. We should automate data monitoring processes, establish well-managed, human-centered governance frameworks and risk controls, and of course, develop tools and solutions for both data producers and data consumers so that it is easy to produce and use that data. So, when data-centric AI is implemented both at the data lifecycle and the AI lifecycle level, you will essentially turbocharge the ML process. You're going to reduce the time it takes to get your data to be model ready. And you're going to, as a result, get your models to market faster, more efficiently, less tech debt. And you're going to quickly ensure that these are performing as expected in production. At Capital One, Alex, intelligent experiences are central to how we build our products and services. And, frankly, customer expectations and trends, they change constantly. They're non-stationary. Consumers expect more from the companies that they work with, that they engage with, the products that they're adopting. And it's not just in financial services, but across many different industries. Given all this, I believe it becomes really imperative for us to continually make data better, starting at creation during the AI development process and continuing after the deployment of the AI systems.
I couldn't agree more, as you could probably guess. And it's It's very, very well said. I mean, one thing would love to double click on is that distinction between, kind of the data lifecycle, kind of pre-AI or pre-data centric AI, and then, data centric AI. So could you elaborate a little bit more on kind of that life cycle of data in the enterprise stack and where data centric AI, as we're talking about it here today, kind of begins and ends?
Sure, absolutely. So data lifecycle begins, as you can imagine, with the creation of the data. And then it follows a number of different phases. We went through this a little bit in the previous question, but I'll double click into it a bit more now. We said data registration is one of the first phases of the data lifecycle. It's a really important step. We should register data in an enterprise repository to know where the data is, first and foremost. And then comes metadata creation. You want to make sure that that's complete, high quality, to make sure people understand what the data is about. Then comes storage, right? You need to find a place to park your data. It needs to be optimized for the type of data and the format of the data that you have. And it needs to be structured in a way that allows people to find the data, that they can access it. Requesting access usually takes a long time in enterprises, so that piece can be optimized as well. And it should be optimized for certain type of computations on it. Tokenization and encryption of sensitive data is an important part of the data lifecycle so that we can ensure data is safe, secure, and private. Use of data is a data lifecycle phase. And the use of data could be usage by humans or machines. And this is actually where the data lifecycle intersects with the machine learning or AI lifecycle. Maintenance, monitoring, governance of data is another important step. This is where we would be tracking who is using the data, how are they using it, and in which use cases are they using the data. And finally, once the data completes its useful life, deletion or archival of that data so that we can remove it from our environments, again, supporting the whole notion of making sure the data is secure and private. And in this life cycle, it's really important to do a number of activities. In summary, we need to make sure data is clean. First and foremost, we want to make sure metadata is completed as much as possible, high quality, data is standardized, and ensuring data is safe and private, as we've mentioned a couple of times. We can augment and enrich our data through labeling efforts, programmatic labeling being one of them, which you've mentioned in the previous session quite in detail. Systematically identifying the bias in the data before the data even gets to the model development lifecycle. And of course, monitoring the data and creating that feedback loop so that we can continuously learn from the data. And if these activities are done right, I think this is going to enable, a lot of goodness in the system, such as it's going to make the data, extremely searchable, discoverable. It will be easily usable by models, and it will be easily monitored. It'll be easily governed. And, after, the data and the data-centric AI process goes through the data lifecycle, it hits the AI lifecycle, right? This is what a lot of the community talks about. And, when we think about data-centric AI in the AI lifecycle, we think about like how do we collect data efficiently? How do we sample it? How do we process this data, basically transforming it from raw format and getting it to model ready? And Alex, if you think about it, if raw data comes into this AI lifecycle already in a high quality manner, it's just going to be a lot easier to do all the great things we're talking about, in the data-centric AI world. It's going to be easier to find the data, easier to collect, gather, transform it, and easier to achieve the needed model performance faster. So, but, no matter how good we do data-centric AI on the, in the data phase or in the AI development phase, AI will still make mistakes in production. We all know that. So therefore, it's really important to continue the data-centric process after the model is built and deployed. This includes monitoring the input data set for drift, the model outputs. We want to make sure that these are producing the results in the expected distribution. We want to analyze the errors the model is creating and potentially go back to the training data set and reinforce areas where the model is not good at. So, in my opinion, data-centric AI starts at data creation, continues throughout the AI lifecycle and the data lifecycle and beyond. And I'll finish this question, Alex, with a quick message to the community here. What I want to say is we need to expand the definition of data-centric AI from a set of tools that target only the activities in the AI lifecycle to a complete interconnected set of processes, frameworks, methods that includes both the data lifecycle and the AI lifecycle. In addition to that, I also want to say that we should expand the conversation to include more folks who are involved in making AI use cases successful. Obviously, this includes the research scientists, data scientists, ML engineers, folks who are with us today, but also data professionals, product professionals, and design professionals who have a profound impact on how data is consumed by these AI use cases and who are quite important in the success of these use cases.
I think those are some great messages here. As you could probably guess, you're preaching to the choir here, but this, some of these themes of the necessity of being more interdisciplinary, pulling in some of these other roles that directly focus on data and just having less siloing between the data and the AI operations. I think that's one kind of overall message that, I'm a huge believer, and I think it's very synonymous with what we're trying to emphasize with this phrase and this focus on data-centric AI is saying, look, if you just think about the data prep and lifecycle as one thing that is totally separate from the AI development lifecycle, and again, that's a lot of how machine learning, think about it, has been thought of for the last a decade plus. Is there's a different set of people that create the data, that prepare it, that curate it. We don't talk to them. We just download it, and then we as data scientists think about vectors. Really, the themes that you're saying of no, these need to be integrated. The data-centric AI has to begin at data collection, because a lot of the steps you have to do with curating and collecting data have to be aware of what you're trying to do with it on the AI side to be successful, and vice versa. Yeah. So I don't know, cheesy as it sounds, this idea of like breaking down silos and bringing teams together between traditional kind of data lifecycle and AI lifecycle, that is a kind of tantamount to what we're, I think, pushing for in this community. So I love how you said that.
Absolutely. And I echo what you said about breaking down silos, and we need to reach out and talk to folks who are responsible of data, because otherwise we can't just assume that they have the requirements of AI systems, especially the emerging AI systems, in their back pockets. We have to communicate those requirements so that we can move a lot of the things that we would otherwise be doing in the model development lifecycle upstream, and it comes to us already taken care of.
Yeah. And I'll just one little anecdote before we go back in, but I'd say that, or not an anecdote, a high level thought is, or observation is that in my experience working with lots of different teams in industry and academia, et cetera, one of the biggest tells, someone sounds like relationship counseling. One of the biggest tells that I've seen in terms of, data science teams that are not going to be productive in terms of realizing impact are ones where they're not closely connected, and they're not talking to the data engineers, the subject matter experts, et cetera. Right? That to me is a tell. If there's a data science team that is just kind of sitting on its own and they just kind of expect data to come from somewhere else, they don't talk to the product managers, the subject matter experts, the data engineers who understand the data and the tasks, clear sign that to me that's not going to be successful. So this integration of data lifecycle and AI lifecycle, it's just so intuitively important, but so underappreciated in everything from how we teach data science to how we build orgs over the last decade. And it's exciting to see more people aware and pushing for it, like yourself. So kind of moving on, like, I guess, could you share some either insights or examples on how data-centric workflows and this broader idea that, the data development and data prep and the AI development they need to overlap and be more fused. Can you share some insights or examples on how this has fueled kind of AI innovation and impacted Capital One?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you two examples of AI use cases at Capital One, and then I'll describe how data-centric AI has helped them. First, I'll talk about fraud. This is our bread and butter. It's really important to us. We built a fraud platform, and it is an example of an application that we built to harness the power of cloud, data, and machine learning all together. We built this from the ground up, and this platform makes complex real-time decisions where we continuously look out for anomalies for suspicious account activity. And then we have the ability to take action in real time. We can either block fraudulent transactions or ensure approved transactions goes through smoothly. So this is one use case where data-centric AI is being applied on a regular basis. And I'll talk about how that's helped in a little bit, but I'll give another example, which is a personalization, another really important topic for us. And here we use data and AI to better understand our customer needs and behaviors, and to truly, deliver the personalized customer experience that expect of their financial institutions on our digital platforms. And this use case primarily helps us put the information in our customers' hands. It enables us to look at their feedback and interactions with us, and allows us to continuously learn, make our models more effective and useful for our customers. So, in both of these examples, we use data-centric AI tools and frameworks, but the broader definition of data-centric AI there, Alex. And, this has allowed us to, in both use cases, find all relevant data quickly, right? As you can imagine, predicting fraud or predicting a customer's intent requires a lot of different types of data. Using data-centric AI upstream has allowed us to get to that data quickly. It allows us to, once we find the data, know what the data is about. We don't spend a lot of time digging into what is this data, where does it come from? We have information about that. We have information about the lineage, so we can connect the dots quickly. We can merge the different data sources together easily as a result of data standardization. We are able to perform transformations on the data, create features, and more importantly, productionalize these data pipelines easily. We are spending less time trying to match the data in dev to serving. We are able to build and run experiments on these models quickly. I would say relatively easier than if we didn't have some of the enterprise platforms that we have. We are able to keep track of those experiments, which, if you don't have the tooling, can be a big headache. And of course, we're deploying these models, again, using our enterprise platforms in a relatively simple way, and are able to monitor the systems, both the data that goes into these use cases, as well as the performance of the models and the performance of the business KPIs or the customer KPIs that we, at the end of the day, are trying to improve. We're looking at the errors that the model is making, and you're using data-centric AI principles to go back and iterate on the data itself to continuously improve the model and the outputs of the models. So, Alex, I'll say in summary, data-centric AI fuels innovation at Capital One because our associates, data scientists, whether they're product managers, engineers, or designers, they're able to find, use, and govern the data easier in an easy way. And with the time that they save on spending on data, they can focus that time and their energy on thinking about new customer experiences and thinking about new products to build and deploy.
Yeah, it's a great point. And that point also about just saving time on being able to discover and leverage data. This actually came up also in the chat that I had yesterday with Gideon Mann from Bloomberg. He was saying, look, we put so much time into organizing and structuring the data. That was part of why we were able to move faster. And so I think it's such an important theme. Again, it sounds generic, but so important, so underappreciated. And it's awesome to hear about the kind of impact that's having at Capital One in your experience. Shifting to another, high level but absolutely critical topic, talking about kind of accuracy, security, and compliance. And so I think that, I mean, probably most people in this audience know there's a step change in terms of going from, the kind of demo that we might see on Twitter today with recent ML approaches to kind of the level of accuracy, security, and compliance that you need to have, in an enterprise, especially in one like Capital One. So, what role do you see kind of data-centric operations play in ensuring accuracy, security, and compliance in your experiences, or just how do you think about those topics?
Yeah, wow. What a meaty topic here, Alex. Ensuring safe and secure use of high quality data is so complex of a topic. Again, this goes back to cutting across an enterprise silos, which is a topic that we're revisiting over and over again. We know that folks are overwhelmed by a constant flood of data that is inaccurate, incomplete, outdated, redundant, and they have to do a lot of work to overcome some of these obstacles and gaps. And frankly, these challenges are just continuing to grow as new sources and formats emerge. We talked about the data lifecycle and some of the things that we can do there, data-centric AI-wise, to create the accurate, secure, and compliant data that you're talking about. But I believe in addition to all of that, we can apply automation using machine learning to turbocharge some of those practices in the data lifecycle. I'll give some examples where machine learning can be plugged into the data-centric AI process, specifically in the data lifecycle. For example, monitoring data, right? Input-output monitoring. We can use anomaly detection with intelligent alerts, depending on who's using that data and how they're using it, involving identifying data points or observations that disagree with expected patterns. And these insights can be delivered to data consumers and producers in as real time as possible, so they know how to react to these changes and shifts, whether that is retraining their models or rolling back to a previous version or what have you. Second example could be detecting sensitive data. There's no question that this is super important, right? And we can use machine learning to understand the patterns of sensitive data, in an organizational setting, and every industry and organization is going to have different patterns or different definitions or what they consider sensitive, and there is the regulatory aspect of this as well. But machine learning can be used to really automate, scale, and enhance those efforts. We actually at Capital One, we've built and open sourced our own tool called Data Profiler to detect such sensitive data. A third example here could be using private analytics or private model training or private serving, right, to ensure privacy of customers or those who are contributing to the data. Thankfully, there are many machine learning frameworks out there to help with this. Basically, these are just some examples of how data-centric AI in the data lifecycle can be improved using machine learning to achieve higher levels of accuracy, security, and compliance across all data sets in an organization. I just want to highlight also that there's a ton of work that's already happening on the ground. What I'm recommending and suggesting here is that we elevate those by using automation and machine learning to the next level.
It's super interesting. It's like to your last point, and then in particular using the example of PII or kind of sensitive data detection. And I'm not talking about anything in detail, just at a high level. There's a lot of opportunity for it's kind of there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of necessity both to kind of do this kind of cleaning and compliance before you use the data for machine learning, but there's also opportunities to use machine learning to speed this up. So it's kind of it's again, comes up a lot. It sounds like a tongue twister, but using machine learning to clean up the data for machine learning sounds confusing high level, but it just makes a lot of sense on the ground. Of okay, like we work in a problem with a in another setting recently where a customer is trying to use machine learning approaches to detect PII, sensitive data. They're doing that to redact it to then put into another downstream machine learning task. So it's kind of interesting how you can use machine learning to help prepare and curate the data, which then might be an end product or might go to another machine learning step. And that's a big kind of theme that I'm seeing, is using machine learning based automation to improve data development, which then may again go to another AI step. So it's super interesting space out there. I got one last question. I know we're actually I ran us a little bit long, but I want to get to ask one. I mean, I think it'd be violating the terms of service of the conference if I didn't ask you about LLMs and Gen AI. So again, huge topic. Maybe I'll narrow it down a little bit. What's your take on recent AI advances? Thinking about foundation models, like we call them, or LLMs or Gen AI, specifically in highly regulated environments like financial services.
Yeah. So great question. Obviously, super timely. First of all, Alex, I think there's incredible potential for generative AI LLMs to help us continue to deliver great customer experiences, within financial services and beyond. These capabilities obviously have the power to transform a lot of our professional and personal lives, from how we build code to how we build applications, how we discover information, how we consume that information. One area that's really exciting to me is the potential for us to apply behavioral and transactional aspect of customer interactions to foundation models, which are the models underpinning Gen AI and large language models and capabilities. These type of models hold a lot of promise in transforming so much of the customer experience in ways that we haven't even thought of before. But I do think that, as with any emerging technology, the potential benefits have to be balanced with risk management. That's why it's always a great practice to do a lot of testing, implement human-centered or human-in-the-loop guardrails before introducing these types of models into any customer or business setting. And this is also where interpretable and explainable AI becomes important. And I'm sure there are talks about this topic here in this conference, so that we can really get a good understanding of the underlying model processes and what drives the performance of these models. I'll end this question, and I know we're out of time. When considering Gen AI in an organizational settings, it's really important to have a couple of components before these capabilities are deployed for use. Number one, I would say input-output monitoring, right? We need to track the performance of the models themselves, but also of the downstream applications, guardrails that are human-centered or human-in-the-loop, to make sure model outputs are acceptable and factual. This is where data labeling, fine-tuning, and prompting can help. Risk management processes and controls. We need to track who builds the models in an organization, where do they get used, who does it impact. We should have tools to understand the stakeholders and users of the models, and be able to quantify the risks imposed on them through the use of these type of models. And finally, tools to ensure privacy of those contributing to the input data is really important. I really hope, Alex, that the community starts thinking about these in day one versus being an afterthought. It's really tempting to quickly build a cool application based on these capabilities and start using them. But it's really, really important to do this in a well-managed and responsible way. There's good news. A lot of data-centric AI frameworks, thoughts, and tools out there. Tremendous work already in progress. And that's why, Alex, I'm fully supportive of your assertion that the future of foundation models is data-centric.
Even more so than the other things, I can imagine you're gonna be shocked to hear that I agree. But I couldn't agree more strongly. I mean, and even beyond just data-centric methods, or just the broader point that you raised of, hey, this last mile, quote unquote, it is so critical. It's not just an afterthought. And this has been true in every era of data science and AI and ML, is that the demos are mind-blowing, but then the things you have to think about of, hey, what does that 5%, 10%, 15% error or hallucination probability mean? You have to think of those on day one, because those are what actually block these awesome technologies from getting to production in a safe and responsible way. So huge +1 to that point. And I want to apologize for those. We had some great questions in the Q&A. I did run us long because it was just such an interesting chat. Nurtekin, thank you so much. If you had a question in the Q&A, if you can post it to Slack, it'd be great. I'm not sure whether Nurtekin will be able to join on Slack, but I'll be there afterwards and can chip in. With that, since we're 2 minutes over, Nurtekin, thank you so much for the awesome chat today and for sharing your perspectives in such a comprehensive and insightful way. And I'll hand it back to Arthi now. Thanks so much.